This is the beginning. We've cleared my vegetable garden. So this is where I used to have vegetables. We're not sure how far the building's going to come along here. I got to move my compost little bin there. But the backhoe is here and they're going to start excavating to see where they can put the building. And it's very wet in this area. The contractor thought we should put it in the woods. I don't want to do that because of forest fires. But we think it'll be in the bank area just here. This is the view that from the building we're hoping to get when it's positioned and angled, so that we have a right between the greenhouse here and the house. So it'll be an easy commute in the middle of winter when we've got snow as I'm getting older. But the view will be very nice, even though I won't be on the water anymore. This is a petunia that I kept alive during the winter on this windowsill, and it looked pretty bleak for a while, and I started feeding it about a month ago, and look at this. Isn't that incredible? Amazing. These are the geraniums, and there's one in the corner I've forgotten the name of. But I kept these alive all winter on this windowsill as well, and started feeding, and they sprang right back. Hi, it's Vaughan at westcoatbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. As you can see from the following pictures, we started work on the new studio, so I'll keep you all up to date on that. That was a tough decision to make, but we decided to go for it. I saw the doctor. She said I was going to live for a lot longer. That's an important thing when you're nearly 70. So basically we're building a small backup studio because this building is actually on the water and it's getting some serious issues with the wall being knocked down in one storm in 2015 that protects it, and then we rebuilt that, and now we've got a little sagging in one corner. So we've got to think that a big serious hurricane could actually do some damage to this building, but I'll have a backup studio where I can actually move straight into, and I'm going to use it in the meantime for mostly glazing. I'll have kilns in there, and it'll be where I do all the glaze chemistry type stuff, mixing glazes and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a luxury at this point, but a backup if needed. So I'm going to be glazing. That's what made me think of that. So I'm going to show you my process of glazing. I have a lot of work. So the shelves are full. Kilns are also all full of bisc work. So this kiln I'm unpacking over here, and this one is cooling down behind me. And there's another one in the corner over there that's actually got another bisc firing preheating right now. So I'm ready to spend 3 to 5 days glazing, and that's the way I work. Is I have a bucket of glaze, obviously, and then I have this, which is a sponge soaking in water, and I can dip the bottom of the piece into that sponge and wipe the glaze off instantly after I've dipped it in the glaze. I have a bucket of clear water to kind of rinse things off, and then I have a sponge that's there to wipe glaze off my hands. Okay, I have a bowl, and what I first do when I'm doing all the glazing is I glaze with my base coats everything. So I'll go through the whole lot, and I've got some experimental glaze pieces in this video, so hang in there. There's some totally new things I don't think you'll have seen before. So I grip it with the tongs. This saves your hands. Your glazes are not totally safe to handle. A lot of people just dip their hands in and stuff, but your skin does absorb minerals and things from the glaze if you put your hands in a glaze bucket. So we add lots of barrier cream if you do that. But I just dip it. And this glaze needs a long time, about 5-6 seconds. And lift it out. And then the sponge that I have right here, I can simply do that, and it wipes a perfect circle off because I trim a little hollow underneath there. And this glaze is very stable, so it doesn't run. That's all I need, and I can put it right on the kiln shelf, but I'm going to put other layers on this. So the first part of glazing is glaze everything one base coat. The way I mix glazes up is I have a electric drill plugged into the ceiling. And I mix the glazes like that about every you know, 5, 6, 7 minutes that I'm glazing, because they settle out, and you got to make sure that you get an even mix of your glaze. And then like we're doing, we're just going to glaze all of these the same way as I did with the other glaze was blue. This is my apple green. And then I'm going to wipe this the same. Perfect. Get yourself one of those sponges in a little square. That's a salad dish wrapping thing that you get salad in at Walmart. And a sponge fits in and you wipe your piece instantly. Here's another way that I glaze. This is the blue glaze. So I will pour this on the inside as I rotate the bowl. So the whole thing is glazed. If you want an even brighter blue, I'll do that one more time. That way I'll get an even brighter blue. And now I'm going to dip it. This is my apple green glaze, the same bowl, that's the blue. Just halfway down. Give it a shake off the rim. So you've got to grip it tight. So now we have blue on the inside, green on the upper half, and I'll figure something out for the bottom. And where they meet at the rim, you'll have some blending. Okay, I'm using a glaze on the inside that is from Mastering Cone 6 Glazes, so I know it's food safe. So I just fill it up and carefully pour it out so it doesn't splash and doesn't dribble down the actual sides of your piece. And then you can actually do a little, you know, sort of playful dribbling pouring by actually just randomly just splashing some glaze on your piece. This is folk art white. So now we got dribbles up. Now I'm going to try and pour with the green, which is the apple green, to fill in the differences. Pouring down the handle, make sure I get that. So what we have are different glazes just dribbled down, so you'll have surprise, surprise, we don't know. And then when the handle's dry, which it's nearly there, I'm going to glaze the bottom. What glaze shall I use for the bottom? Now the glaze is dry enough on the handle, I'm going to do a swish with my oatmeal on the bottom. And I know from experience that my oatmeal does really good when I put it over the top of glazes on the rim. So I'm going to give my rim one last coat of glaze right on the top and just swish it. It's dry already on the bottom. So I'm just going to do this in the glaze. Because my oatmeal looks really good. And if we got to run like that, it won't matter, because that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create dribbles and runs and varied areas around the actual piece. Okay, if you know that 3 glazes look good together, then you can do this type of glazing, which I'm going to show you now. I have purple, oatmeal, and folk art white here, which I've tried before and they look pretty good together. So I can choose either of these two for the inside, which I think would look nicer for serving food on. So let's go with the oatmeal. And I simply pour it on the inside and twist like I did in the other video, and the other piece. Well, so the inside has got the oatmeal all over it, and then I wait for it to dry a second. Then I'm going to dip it from just the bottom part, about 2/3 of the way up. So we've got the actual texture on this bowl covered there, and I'm going to wait for it to dry again, which it doesn't take very long. I should wipe this one like we do the others. It's nice to wipe off the edge where the foot is, and now it's drying a little slower because I just really wet it. But anyway, you're going to then dip it into the folk art white, because I know that looks good over the purple, and just go down to where just past the texture is, and then come out. And these colours look really good together. It's overlapped a little bit on the inside, you know, just that little bit on the edge there. And then we've got folk art white overlapping the purple, and then they're straight purple. And you know, it's fairly simple and easy to do that, but obviously you need to be able to dip your glazes to do this. So if you're actually just got small amounts of glaze, like pints, when you buy pints, which is a very expensive way of buying glaze, but as a beginner you may just want to buy some pints. There's nothing wrong in doing that until you figure out what colours look really good. Then you can just use a sponge or pouring, which I'll show you next. Okay, if you have a pint of glaze, this is your pint, you'll need to have a little bucket or a bowl underneath where you're pouring, and I've got big buckets, so I'm just pouring into that. But you would just say have a little washing bowl here with your pint of glaze, and you're simply going to pour the glaze into this bowl, and you can do it in any way you want, obviously, and you can try and make abstracts, or you can make something quite formal. Well, I'm going to do something quite formal. I'm going to pour purple right across the middle, and then I'm going to pour folk art white across the sides, and then I'm going to pour oatmeal across there, and then I'm going to do the same on the outside. So we've got the purple. It's hard for me to make, you can see here, but let's see if I can get this way. So basically, just past the middle, pouring down. I've got a little spill, a little drip there, so turn it around. Same again. And then where I've got that on the outside, I'm just going to do the same. Turn it around, try and do the opposite. See, I haven't used up this carton of glaze, and this is about a pint. So you can just do that, and you only had a pint of glaze to do it with. Then I'm moving to the other glaze, which I said I was going to do folk art white. This around so you can see a bit easier. So now I'm turning the bowl, and I'm going to pour folk art white all the way across that area. So it's overlapping the actual purple. Same again here. That's what we've got. So just needed a pint for this, and then I'm going to pour up so it's overlapping. So we've got a nice coverage. Your fingers get tired when you do things like this, so you've got to have some strong fingers. Let's see if I can grip this again. You might want to have a table next to it so you can, if you drop it, you won't drop it very far. So we've got folk art white, like a stripe in the center, folk art white. Now I'm going to do the oatmeal, just not as high. So we've got the oatmeal there. See if I can turn it around again. Same again here. That stick's getting in the way. You need a stick for stirring your glaze. So then I've got to do the inside, the same again, just don't go as far up. And the final one, so So you basically got these stripes going across your bowl, inside and outside. And if you get runs, it'll be fine. Part of the whole thing, really. I nicked a little bit of the purple there, so I've got to dab a bit on. Glazing is the dirtiest job I do in the studio. Dust and bits get everywhere, so you got to try and be a little clean and mop the floor as soon as you finish glazing. The bottom of this I'm just going to dip in the purple when it's a bit drier, if I can get that into this purple bowl. If not, I'll just dip it into my oatmeal. That would work just as well. Oh, actually, I think I will do the oatmeal anyway. I use oatmeal a lot on the bottom of my pieces. Anyway, that's another way if you don't have very much glaze. If you do decide to go the dipping route, which is once you've decided you really want to be a potter, you should, because it's a cheaper way to go making glazes. And the book that you should get is Cone 6 Glazes. I'll post the link to it. Mastering Cone 6 Glazes is the book you should get if you can get hold of it. It's got great recipes in it that all work, and they've been tested for food safety. But anyway, here's what you do. If you've got a vertical form, you just fill it full as much as you can get in there, and you can pour it out by turning it like that, so it gets all over the rim right to the top. And this is that technique with these three colours. There's the purple, dip it at the bottom, lift it out. Make sure you get as much glaze off the bottom as you can, because I like a thin coat of glaze on the bottom, because I stilt fire on, so I can glaze the bottoms, but I don't like a thick glaze on the bottom. I wait for a minute for it to get dry on the bottom. So while I'm waiting for that piece to glaze for a minute, I just glazed another piece, so I'm not standing idle waiting. So this one's now going to sit, and I just sit it on a stilt so it doesn't touch the shelf. You just put it on a stilt while it's drying. Now this one is dry enough so I can grip the bottom, dip it into the folk art white, overlapping the purple by a couple of inches, and then I dip it into the oatmeal about a third of the way down, and lift it up. And make sure as many of the drips as possible get off here before you turn it the right way up. If you like drips, just let it drip. You can do fake drips, but if you like drips. But that way we're now going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors of glaze on this piece where they overlap. So the building excavation has hit the cliff, because the Nova Scotia is a big, huge piece of rock, and we've actually digging down, we've hit the cliff, so we had to call in a hammer, which is splitting the rock and digging the hole, which will slow us down 2 or 3 days, I guess, with putting the hole in the foundation. But this is the noise it makes. What a racket. The thing I want to show you is sponge glazing for people who only buy glaze in pints. You can get these from a craft store. They're little round sponges. They come in various sizes, even smaller than that, actually quite smaller than that. You can make sponges by cutting up a big sponge you'd find at the hardware store, and that's how these were made as well. So they're just random, sponges I find in the hardware store and cut them up. You can also, if you want to, take these sponges. If you have a soldering iron, you can take it outside to do it, but you can melt the sponge and make patterns with it to actually get textures with glazes as well. And you can make lots of these. We have a bag full of those with different textures on them. Some of them get quite elaborate, so have fun. But anyway, sponge glazing is very easy. You don't need much glaze at all. You just have to be a little even with it, and after you've tried it a couple of times, you'll kind of get the gist of how much you have to do it. But I'm going to show you a couple of pieces next, just to elaborate on this. I have a bisc bowl, textured on the outside and the inside a little bit. And I've got purple, bright blue, and apple green. So I'm just going to just sort of sponge this piece and fade the glaze from, let's say, green to blue and purple all the way around. And the only thing I think people will be a little kind of hesitant at first is they'll make the glaze too thin. So I like to stamp and go over it 3 times and just dab like this. When the sponge seems to be running out a bit, soak it again and try and start off where you finish. And I'm going to stop about there and now start going down again. And load the sponge up again, and I'm going to go up again. So I think that 3 coats will give you a fairly even coating. And then we're going to move to the blue. So rinse out the sponge. Got some water here so I can rinse the sponge properly. Get some blue. Soak it in, make sure it's there. Be careful now it doesn't create runs. So let's do it over here. See, the first coat is usually very runny. Or very thin. And you can almost see the clay through the actual stamping. So now we're on our second rotation. And I know the blue is a little bit transparent. The green is a bit more opaque. That's 2 coats. To get some more. There you go. Let me show you a close-up of that now, so you can see what we have there. Now I'm going to move to the purple. Okay, so let's have a look at this, and you can see how even it is. So we've got a nice even, but we'll have some fading of colour into colour. And now I've got to do the rim a little bit on this one. And I think what I'm going to do is use the blue to do the rim, because that's a little thicker and the rim should have a bit more coating on it. Three coats all the way around. Glaze actually recedes from a rim too. As it melts, it flows away from the rim. So it's good to have a thick coat on your rim. And that should act like a framing of the edge here, where we've got the purple with a blue edge around. That should look pretty. Somebody asked me why I drink such terrible coffee, and I don't mind Folgers coffee actually, but the containers are really useful in the studio. The little black lids make great trays to get stop glaze from spraying over, and I store my dry materials, chemicals in these. Okay, so now we've got blue, and I can probably do it the opposite. Let's do the blue at the Okay, I'm going to use one of my textured sponges, and I just got some oatmeal. I'm just going to dip that in. I'm not sure if this will show up on here because we've got a lot of color blending going on, but I'm just going to do a, see, let's do it this way. Oh yeah, it shows up. It shows up after the firing though. You don't want to let it dribble.
Where are you?
And that's how you create a little texture on the actual top of the bowl. So let's give you a close-up of it. So you'll see whether it shows up after the firing. But that's how to glaze a big piece, just by sponging. Now, here's something for beginners and advanced people. This is a slip decorated bowl. And I simply, using slip trailing these things and paint brushes, I just did an abstract, and I'm going to glaze using sponges over the top of this to kind of create who knows what. It's a total experiment for me too. So here we go. So I am going to just use the same colors I just used. I've got purple, blue and green with some oatmeal, and just play with this and just sponge in random areas to create some different color glazes over the top of different colored slips, which are blue, white and black in this bowl. So I'm going to put it on stop motion because this will take a while to do, and but it's 3 colors plus the oatmeal. Okay, we have a basically randomly glazed with some kind of idea of what I wanted to do, following the pattern that was already on there. I've overlapped the glazes at the edges a little bit for blending, but sometimes I stayed a little close to the edge. So now I've got one of my little round stamps here, and I'm going to dab some dots in here randomly over it. We'll see what we get. It's got a lot of stuff in the slip decoration, and then you've got these glazes which are basically semi-transparent, a little opaque. So what's underneath will show through, and then the oatmeal on the top will give you some opacity in those areas. But honestly, I have no idea what this will look like when we fire it. And that's part of the fun of it. I am actually going to glaze the rim blue all the way around. I just decided to do that too. I think that's a nice color for on the outside. I think I'm going to glaze blue all the way around, stamping it just the way I did on the other bowl. Infinite number of patterns and color variations that you could do decorating like this. If you want to see how to use slips, I have a slip, everything you need to know about slip, but we're afraid to ask. And you know, if you're my age, that's a pun on a book that came out when I was very young. There you go. So we've got a blue edge, who knows? But anyway, I'll decorate the outside now the same as the other bowl. Okay, this is another one of my decorative bowls. So I'm going to try brushing this one instead of sponging. So you could do this if you didn't have very much glaze, and you know, because you pour your pint into a bowl and you can dip your brush in and glaze. So I'm going to try this one. This is blue, and I'm going to try glazing with kind of a pattern involved here. A lot of glazes you buy may be meant for brushing anyway, but you can actually make a regular glaze into a brushing glaze just by adding CMC gum to it anyway. So I'm not trying to be accurate totally. Because I'm going to let the glazes overlap. So that's blue, and I'm going to do a second coat. If it's thin, in one coat, it means the glaze is going to have a more transparent look. If it's on a little thicker, you may end up with some opacity, which may hide some of this pattern. I'm not sure, but these are experiments. Now we're going to move to the next color, which will be, get the glaze off there, which will be green. There we go. Why have I chosen these colors to decorate? I don't know. I just figured the green, the blue, and a little bit of oatmeal maybe will look good. It's just a gut feeling. So should I go for the second coat? I don't know. So there you go, you can take a close look. And with the patterns that are underneath, this will add depth to the images that are already there. And now I think, rather than just put oatmeal on with brushes, I'm going to stamp with the sponges again. Okay, so I've got my little oatmeal dots. I've got about 4 or 5 different sizes of these, but I'm just going to do 2 bowls. I've got about 8 of these bowls to decorate, but I'm just going to try a couple because they are experiments and we don't know if it's going to work. But we have so much slip decoration underneath there, this is just to add a little extra depth. And then we've got this one, which didn't work too well, but we'll try again. No, it doesn't press in because it's a curved surface. If I press hard, it will run. So let's try one more. No, that's okay, but it's still missing in the center area of the stamp. Pressed hard that time. Yeah, it worked, but it didn't run, so maybe I'm worried for nothing. That one is running, but it ran in the pattern itself, so it wasn't too bad. There you go. So we'll give this one a try now and we'll see how this one works. And I'm just going to pour the glaze over the back using the blue that I have. But if you haven't got much glaze, just stamp it the way we did in the other stamping explanation and demonstration that I just did. Okay, this bug, I'm going to pour my oatmeal on the inside. pour it out. I'm going to dip oatmeal over the whole outside. I'll pull it out and let it dry for a minute. Now I'm going to take my green glaze, and this is so if you don't have very much glaze, you can do brushwork, of course. So now you could brush the oatmeal on here first, and then you can just randomly put some green on. And do this some blue. So we've just got random brush strokes. Who knows what's going to happen? And now I could brush some oatmeal over the top again if you want. There's a nice big run there. Is that a run? Yeah, I guess so. Let's see. What could I could? Well, no, I don't want to overdo it. It's nice the way it is. It'll probably be quite a pleasant looking brushwork. You'll see the brush strokes going through. So that's a quick, spontaneous way of glazing. Now, here's a little back scratching tool. Once you've got the glaze on, you can also scrape it off. And give yourself a quick pattern doing that. And of course, there are many tools that you could use to carve with. This is just one example. You can put glaze on, you can take glaze off. If you just have a pint of glaze like this here, you can pour it in your mug. Then you just pour it back into a little bowl. You don't have enough glaze to actually dip your mug, because I have gallons and gallons, but you may only have a pint. So you've got a brush glaze. So you take your glaze and you just simply brush it over the entire thing. You can't see very easily here. But just get a coating on really quick. Get your handle. Now, if you put gum CMC, there are various gums, but gum CMC is one of them, into your glaze, it becomes a brushing glaze because it thickens the glaze, it stops it drying as fast. But a lot of glazes, you buy them and they're already brushing glazes. So this is quite a variation of color. I'm doing 3 coats. When you brush glaze, you generally have to put 3 coats on. But it's quick. There you go, that was done fairly quickly. So we just glazed it. So we've given ourselves a little pattern that the glaze will kind of show the clay through. Just as another playful way of putting glaze on, taking glaze off. You could now glaze this with another color over the top, and of course where the white lines are would be the pure color of the glaze you're adding for the second layer, whereas on the blue areas that I've just glazed, whatever color you're adding over the top would be mixing the 2 glazes together. So there's another way of doing it. This is the total glazing that I did. It took me a day and a half to get the base coats on everything. And I've included many of those descriptions and demonstrations. I even had to start using tops of buckets because it was a lot of pieces. And I still have, that kiln is full. And then I've got some pots over there, and then the little kiln has got pieces as well. But these 2 kilns that have still got work in them have got earthenware, so I won't be taking those out until I've got some room. But anyway, tomorrow I will do the second coats, and so in the next part of the video I'll show you what I do on day 2, or after I've got the base coats, day 3 or 2, whichever. But I start doing other things, adding layers. I'll show you next. So the forsythia has just started to turn green on the tops where I've cut it shorter, but the blooms are still holding in there, only I can see a couple of them starting to fall, so we're about ready to lose the yellow forsythia. It's always sad because it looks so nice, but you can see little tinges of ginger where the spirea plants are just starting to come into leaf as well. I tidied up this bed, part of the studio garden this morning, with there's that little touch of ginger. So these are going to start to leaf very soon. So this actually will look much better in about 2 to 3 weeks. And there's lots of dandelions coming. It's day 2 or 3 of glazing, and I've been glazing base coats on everything. And a few things I did in this demo showed like 2 or 3 things being added to glazes on day 1 or 2 anyway. But here's a caution thing. I never put 2 coats of a glaze on the bottom of the pot. Or anywhere near the bottom of the pot, because glazes run, and I like to just have that single layer on the bottom, and that way you don't get the runs that go down. You can still get runs around the handle, I've noticed, and you've seen my videos, you will see that quite a bit in the earlier videos. It always builds up on the handle and then runs down the handle, because I have a groove in the handle naturally produced by my finger and my knuckle, so it gives a channel for glaze to run. So be aware that glaze picks places to run down and get build up and get thicker and run down. So single layer on the bottom, and you could do 2 or 3 layers on the top. One of the classics that I've done, don't do it as much anymore, is just with a bowl like this. This is licorice. And I have my oatmeal here. And I've given the glaze recipes out for all of the glazes that I use in previous videos, but just basically dipping it on the outside, and then you just have the inside, which is a licorice, is totally black, but you get this kind of motley, almost like a leopard skin or a alligator scales kind of glaze on the outside, where the tin that's in this glaze melts into the black underneath. So that's one that I've done, which is fairly successful. If you don't have big quantities of glaze because you're buying in pints, then you can always go back to what we did in the early pot when I'm doing base coats. You can get a sponge, and this one has a pattern in it, but it doesn't have to have a pattern. And we can simply go around the bowl holding it, and you can actually produce patterns using textured patterned sponges. I'm not sure what that will look like after the firing. We'll actually wait and see, but you know, the thicker you do this coat, the more. Black is a hard color to cover, but this has got tin in it, which is opaque, so it will definitely do something. If you had a glaze with titanium in it, it's less likely to actually do something very obvious, but this may actually show up pretty well. Another combination of glazing that works really good, this is bright blue, and I simply dip that side in variegated blue. So you get that effect on the inside and that on the outside. Then I do the other sides in the oatmeal. So I get that effect. So you got like different areas with different overlappings, same on the inside. So this works really good. Bright blue, variegated blue, and oatmeal. You can actually do the same type of effect by sponging very carefully, and you'll get the same result. But this combination, bright blue, variegated blue, oatmeal, looks really good. These are the mugs that I glazed with folk art white, and my oatmeal looks good over the top of folk art white. So this is how I would do the top. So I've got, and this is subtle, but I've got my oatmeal over folk art white, and then holding it, because this will dry very quickly, I'm going to, no glaze on the bottom, I'm going to glaze my green about 1.5 inches up, but nothing, it's only a single coat on the bottom. So we end up with that. And there'll be some sort of variations in length of gaps in between with some overlapping. So it'll give me a nice variation in the mug itself. But still only a single coat of one glaze on the bottom. And this combination is folk art white, oatmeal, and apple green. Another really good combination, there's no glaze on the bottom of this yet, is matte turquoise, and then I put variegated blue and oatmeal over the top, just like this. That's a quick 1 second dip. Let it dry a touch. In the oatmeal just a couple of seconds. Timing doesn't necessarily compare with anybody else because it depends on how thick your glaze is. Because if your thick glaze is really thick, you're in and out, and if your glaze is really thin, you have to hold it in a bit longer. Your glazes should never be really thin anyway. Now it's dry enough so I can glaze the bottom, and oatmeal is a really good glaze for the bottom, but also matte turquoise is good, but oatmeal will look good on these. The oatmeal is a very opaque glaze that can be applied thin, and it will do a good coverage, and so it's also good to sign your name on the bottom if you sign your pieces. People ask me how I sign the pieces. This is black underglaze and a Japanese paintbrush, Chinese paintbrush. So just a nice fine line paintbrush, and then let's see if I can get you to see this. So basically, if you let the less glaze on the brush, you can find a little bit more detail on, sign a little bit. You can sign a little bit more detail on them. One, the brush is a little less black on it. There you go. If somebody searches me on Google, they'll find me with that information. So it's useful if you want people to buy more work from you. And if you make shoddy work, you better not sign your name really good because they'll be looking for you for that.